Hey guys, DG Thunderer here with an analysis of the Challenger 3 semifinals between FreddyBabes and Adzikov. Keep in mind that this was from before the swap patch, so some cards are a bit different. Also, this is a semifinal, which means that both players know their opponent's decks. Finally, as always, you can find a link to the full match in the description below. Now let's look at these players' lineups. Here are Freddy's lists. We've looked at them in a previous video, so I'll be brief. He brings strong decks that are resistant to countering. Henselt has an almost guaranteed target with the Siege Towers, especially combined with Shani. For his monster list, Neckers are only one of several win conditions. Adzikov also brings overall strong lists. Alchemy and pre-swap patch Broover Elves are dominating decks. He also brings a Nova variant of Deathwish, and he brings Brand's Cursed Boats. None of these decks run strong counters to anything, nor do they go out of their way to avoid being countered. They are all solid meta decks. For bans, both players ban the other's brand list. I'm honestly a little surprised that Broover was not banned, as it is recognized as one of the strongest decks. Brand, however, is one of the best decks to play on Blue Coin. Looking at both players' lineups, they do not have any decks that can mitigate the impact of getting the Blue Coin besides Brand. Thus, banning Bran makes the remaining lineup more dependent on getting the red coin. Freddy's deck is very dependent on finding Germain and consuming the cows to get harpies out of his deck. Because of this, he plays an early Gels, but he knows that all of his potential pulls are fine. Kran is his only other gold, which is fine value with the half-elf hunters on board. The other silvers are Olgeared and Ruin, neither of which is very bad in this situation. Freddy does get lucky and finds Germain though. Freddy continues to play slow, setting up an Arrakis Behemoth because he knows that he can afford to since he has red coin, and since he has such a strong 31-point burst play coming up. Immediately after Freddy's burst play, Adzikov gets bad luck by finding double War Dancer off of Triss Reconnaissance. What's really interesting though is how Freddy responds to that. Freddy counters by using Toad to consume his own Frightener for a 22-point play, including the Arrakis that spawns. Freddy decides not to use Frightener for card advantage directly, but indirectly. His massive lead forces Adzikov to either give the round to Freddy on even cards, or to go down 2 cards to take it. Adzikov opts to stay in the round, giving Freddy 2 card advantage going into round 2, which carries Freddy to victory. Even though Frightener was never used to draw a card, it still ended up giving Freddy card advantage. Freddy starts the game off with a dry pass. Because Broover's swap is very strong in long rounds, Adzikov needs to bleed some elves out of Freddy, and decides to play round 2. Then, early in the round, Freddy plays his spy. Since Adzikov does not have his own spy, it is very difficult for him to know how far ahead he needs to be to maintain card advantage. In the end, Adzikov passes with a significant lead, but Freddy is able to use Nova to take it in 1 card, letting him take an extra card into round 3. That card carries Freddy to victory. The game starts off with both players dry passing, giving a long round 3. While normally it's dangerous going into long round 3 without drawing Henselt out, Adzikov knows that with the long round, his points over time will greatly mitigate the impact of Henselt. In addition, his 2 Rot Fiends are guaranteed to get massive value. These tools carry him to victory. The play of this game comes very early on, right here. With that 1 mulligan, Freddy is unable to dry pass round 1. This is another example of how significant having a set coin flip in tournaments can be. Being a red coin deck, Henselt almost always prefers to dry pass on blue coin. The War Dancer completely denies that. Adzikov uses the War Dancer and the strong Broover, Spy, Barclay, Cleaver opening to get a lead over Freddy that is sure to force Freddy down a card. Because he won round 1 on even, Adzikov has the freedom to push round 2 without losing card advantage. Thus, he pushes and forces out Freddy's Henselt. Once Freddy does play Henselt, Adzikov takes the pass and goes into a very strong final round with Nova and Triss Telekinesis in hand, winning the game. This match is all about Adzikov trying to deny Freddy's Henselt target. The important factor here is that Freddy brought Siege Towers, which, if they are crewed, cannot be killed by a Viper Witcher. This important decision means that Adzikov needs to not only remove every machine, but also every crew unit, because if a crew unit survives, Freddy can play a siege tower and guarantee it can stay on the board for Hensel. Adzikov's goal would be completely lost, except that he rolls a lock off of his runestone. This allows him to shut down Ronvid, which potentially allows him to deny all crewmen. Freddy then gets very unlucky, playing 2 winches that show him none of the machines he is playing. Since Adzikov knows Freddy's list, he safely lets those machines stay on the board. So round 3, the battle over Hensel, begins. Adzikov gets lucky, pulling his 3rd Viper Witcher off of Cantarella. Because Freddy does not have Shawnee, he cannot guarantee that a siege tower sticks without using a crewman, allowing Adzikov to kill each of the towers as Freddy places them. Side note, notice how Adzikov plays his first Witcher this round via an ointment? This is to hide information, so Freddy cannot guess how many Witchers Adzikov has available to him. Having an ointment is much more likely at this stage than having another Witcher, especially since Adzikov's earlier pass suggested, correctly, that he didn't have any more Witchers in hand. Next, Freddy makes an interesting play, shuffling both siege towers and Ronvid into his deck. Ronvid is the only crewman that Adzikov cannot kill, and thus his only chance to get siege towers to stick. Freddy then pulls Ronvid off of his spy, enabling reinforcements to pull a siege tower for a guaranteed Hensel target. In the end, though, it doesn't matter. Adzikov hopes to pull Ox off of Joachim, but that fails, and even if it didn't, Freddy had too many crewmen for Adzikov's Witchers to answer anyways. Let's rewind and look at 2 moments where Adzikov missed a chance to remove some of Freddy's Hensel targets. Here, Adzikov has just passed round 1. He does so because he has no answer to Freddy's Siege Master, which was just played. However, Adzikov banished another Siege Master earlier with Mandrake, meaning that Freddy can only have one other in his deck. Using Hensel to pull that one out would only be a 16-point play, counting the trebuchet tick as well. A small play of only 10 points here would guarantee that Hensel cannot overtake Adzikov next turn. By continuing to play, Adzikov could have gotten another crewman or machine out of Freddy and then passed, effectively killing that extra unit with a pass. Here, Adzikov uses a Witcher to remove a battering ram in round 3. He knows there's another battering ram in Freddy's graveyard, and that at most Hensel would be a 16-point play pulling out another battering ram. With the battle to deny siege towers being so tense, it might make sense for Adzikov to let the ram through, knowing that a Hensel on it is not game-winning. Instead, he opts to remove it. Maybe he didn't realize that Freddy had more access to his siege towers, or maybe he was trying to deny any siege master value. In the end, Adzikov had one less Witcher to deal with Freddy's threats, which meant that he could not kill the final siege support and a siege tower. While ultimately these extra machine removals didn't matter because Adzikov could not remove Ronvid a second time, if Adzikov had pulled Ox from Joachim to counter Ronvid, he would have been able to prevent Hensel from being any more than 16 points and would have won the game. So although it didn't matter because he didn't find Ox, it was his path to victory and it seems like he missed it. Of course, it's hard to recognize that when you don't know your opponent's hand. In all, this was a great match, especially the final game. Freddy's tech of siege towers to avoid being countered paid off and ultimately allows him to advance to the finals. It is a bit disappointing that several of the games were blowouts, but that's what happens when a skilled player is able to exploit their opponent's vulnerabilities, like a favored matchup or an unlucky reconnaissance. Thankfully, the epic contest in the last game made up for the earlier blowouts. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed and that you learned something. If so, you can show your appreciation by liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. I'm DG Thunderer, and until next time, take care.